Welcome to the Mindful Fire podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. My dad will be so grateful. See you next time on the Mindful Fire podcast.
Welcome to the Mindful Fire podcast, a show about crafting a life you love and making work optional, using the tools of mindfulness, envisioning, and financial independence. I'm your host, Adam Coelho, and I'm so glad you're here. Each episode of the Mindful Fire podcast explores these 3 tools through teachings, guided meditations, and inspiring interviews with people actually living them to craft a life they love. At its core, Mindful Fire is about creating more awareness and choice in your life. Mindfulness helps you develop self-awareness to know yourself better and what's most important to you by practicing a kind, curious awareness. Envisioning is all about choosing to think big about your life and putting the power of your predicting brain to work to create the life you dream of. And financial independence brings awareness and choice to your financial life, empowering you to make your vision a reality by getting your money sorted out and ultimately making work optional. And here's the best part. You don't have to wait until you reach financial independence to live out your vision. Mindful Fire is about using these tools to craft that life now on the path to financial independence and beyond. If you're ready to start your Mindful Fire journey, go to mindfulfire.org/start and download my free envisioning guide. In just 10 minutes, this guide will help you craft a clear and inspiring vision for your life. Again, you can download it for free at mindfulfire.org/start. Let's jump into today's episode. Derk, welcome to the Mindful Fire podcast. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be on your podcast. Been listening and love what you're putting out there.
Thanks for being here. I know it's a long time coming. So I want to start by sharing with the audience a little bit about how you and I know each other. So I met Derk way back in 2012 when I had the opportunity to travel to Europe for work. I was visiting the Dublin office where Derk worked, and we were part of the same global team. And Derk and I bonded over entrepreneurship and side hustling, which neither of us were really doing at the time, but we had dreams and aspirations to do that. A couple years later, Derk actually moved to the United States. We were working more closely on the same team in Mountain View for Google. Both of us got more into side hustling, and really our journeys with side hustling have started and followed a similar path, although in different aspects, but on the same timeline. I'll never forget that my first deal that I ever cut with a side hustle client was actually when I was at Derk's apartment. I think I had taken the day off, or I was off for some reason. We were both kind of thinking and working on some ideas, and I had a call with a potential client. I remember that I got my first client to agree to pay me $10,000 up front. And that was a huge deal. I actually thought I was ready to quit my job, although my wife quickly pointed out that it's not possible to live on $10,000. But I remember being so pumped, and you and I just like jumping up and down, so excited in your apartment that day. And so I'll never forget that. And it's just been amazing to see all that you've achieved, not only in the side hustle realm, but at work and in life and with your Ironman Triathlon. So with all that said, it's great to finally have you on the podcast.
Oh, wow. Thanks, Adam. That was a walk down memory lane right there. I forgot completely about that first sale of yours. And yeah, no, we've known each other for quite a while now, about 10 years. And to start, I think we bonded over more than just entrepreneurship in Dublin. I think the reason we connected is because we partied really well. I think I found a fellow degenerate in you.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, that trip to Dublin. I remember we did get into some trouble at the holiday party. That was a wild holiday party in Dublin, man. People go hard there. And I remember they try to limit the partying by only providing 2 free drinks and then making people pay. But nobody seemed to care about that. It was a good time. And I remember having a lot of fun with you and the other guys.
It was great to have you come over. And yeah, actually, you planted the entrepreneurial seed. But yeah, 2012, there was a lot going on in that year. I had just done, I think, my first marathon, and that quickly rolled up into me signing up for my first Ironman. So it was a really like a funny phase in my life, as before even having done my first marathon, I was not a very healthy person. And I've been smoking since I was 16, and I must have been at least, I guess, 20, 26, 28 at the time. So for quite a number of years, and partying and drinking a lot. So I was definitely in a much different place than I am today.
I want to have you start by sharing with the audience a little bit about who you are, your journey, and what you're up to these days.
My name is Derk de Korver. I was born in the Netherlands. In my youth, we moved around a lot because of my dad's work, lived in countries like Brazil, Germany, Belgium, Austria. And then, we moved back to the Netherlands in my teenage years, where I finished high school and in college. And when I started working, I didn't start in tech at all. I started in an agricultural trading company called Cargill. I was trading orange juice concentrate, did that for a number of years. I had a friend working in recruitment in Google Dublin. He proposed that I come work for Google as well in Dublin. So packed my stuff and moved out, and it's been a wild ride ever since. It was during this time that I guess I discovered a new part of myself. I started training for a marathon just to get healthy, because in my student time, I definitely didn't live very healthily, and I just wanted to get in shape. So I signed up for my first marathon, and in that process of getting to the marathon, did a couple of shorter races where people around me told me, based on my times, wow, you really have a knack for this. You're pretty good. And that gave me a ton of confidence. And so every marathon I did in a really respectable time of 3 hours and 15 minutes, which I think is like probably top 5% of the people racing it. That just boosted my confidence. Except when I finished the race, one of my new colleagues at Google didn't seem all that impressed by my accomplishments. And the reason for that being said, that's a fine time, but I do Ironman. And I'm like, what the hell is Ironman? You may remember him, Adam. It was Jean Regis, our French colleague managing the French market. Funny guy, but as soon as he said that, so he wasn't impressed by my time, and it was because he did Ironman. I said, screw you. What race are you doing? I'm signing up, and signed up for my first Ironman and started training for it. It was only kind of 3 weeks into training that I really started to realize what an Ironman was, and what the distances were for the listeners. It's basically, and now let's get my metric system correctly, it's a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and a full marathon, 26 miles after the bike, all consecutively. So there's no breaks in between. So yeah, I see you shaking your head at him. It's still mind boggling.
Yeah, I found out what an Ironman was. And even still right now, I'm like blown away by that. The fact that anyone can even do that once, let alone how many times you've done it at this point.
Yeah, no, I must admit, once it dawned on me, I was a little scared, but I'd committed. And as you might know, I have quite the extreme personality to myself. Like when I go for something, I tend to just go all in. So I stopped drinking for that whole year that I was training for that event. It's like I said, I need to focus. And luckily there were some other colleagues that were really into sports. My other Dutch colleague, Jordi, was a very high-end runner in the Netherlands in his youth. And Catherine Downs was one of the top cyclists in Ireland. And they both told me, you need a coach. So I took a coach, and that just got me really structured, and they got me ready for my first Ironman, which was in Zurich. And that was a very fun year. When everything is new, everything is fun and exciting. So it was a fun year where, I built my season having some shorter races, from like local short triathlons to some half Ironmans, building up to that big Ironman in Zurich. When the big day came in Zurich, for it being my first Ironman, all I wanted to do was cross the finish line and enjoy myself. My family came out, my friends came out. It was a ton of fun. And when I finished, I think it was like just over 10 hours. And at that point, similar with marathon, everybody was telling me, oh, you got a knack for this. And they were saying, oh, you could go to Kona. And I'm like, what the hell is Kona? And they're like, oh, it's the World Championships. And then I was like, oh, wow, that sounds interesting. And I started researching that. Kona, you have to qualify for. It's a race, Ironman race on the island of Kona in Hawaii, which is the birthplace of Ironman triathlon. And yeah, after that first one, I set my goals on qualifying for Kona, and I managed to do that, I think 3 years into doing Ironman, and just So people realize it's really hard to qualify. If you want to qualify, you actually have to pretty much win the age group of one of the qualifying races. And yeah, then you have to race in Kona where conditions are absolutely brutal. So yeah, like fast forward, I managed to qualify for Kona. Like I've done it 4 times. And actually the last time that I did it, which was 2019, I finished 8th overall in the world. It's funny how my goals shifted from just wanting to finish my first Ironman, or no, finish my first marathon. Then it shifted to wanting to finish my first Ironman. Then it shifted to wanting to qualify for Kona. And then realizing that even at the World Championships, I was better than most. My goals were set to, okay, I want to win my age group overall. Then it shifted to, I want to win the whole damn thing overall. And in fact, I won several Ironman races overall. But at the World Championships, I never won my age group. But yeah, I did come in 8th overall, which means that in that top 8, there were 3 other of the guys were in my age group. For those listening, like it's an 8 to 10 hour day. So there's so much that can happen that can go wrong. The conditions that you're racing in, it's a roll of the dice of whether you're going to have a good or bad day. So I was happy with my 8th place overall and my 4th place in age group that I decided, okay, now I want to go pro, because with those achievements, I was also beating a bunch of the pros, and those were people doing it full time versus me. I all through this experience, I'm working at Google, I'm building my family, I'm building a business. So I figured, let's see if I went pro without changing all too much in my training. Let's see what I can achieve there. So yeah, the past 2 years, I've been racing as a professional and achieving middle of the pack achievements at the pro level, which I'm happy with, considering that I always describe myself as a triathlete with a day job. Actually, just in November, I decided to stop racing, actually, because I'd been at it for almost 9 years and I feel like I've checked all the boxes of what I wanted to achieve there. And it's just been an amazing journey. And I want to put my time and energy towards other things, predominantly my family and building a business.
That is absolutely incredible, dude. I knew a lot of that, but there are certainly things that I didn't know. And being a friend of yours, watching alongside, I remember many times sitting there watching the app, seeing where you were, what your times were. Not that they made any sense to me, but I was rooting you on. And to see that you set your mind to getting to Kona, achieving what you achieved is just unbelievable. So congratulations, man, on all that success. It's really amazing, especially given the fact that you were working full time, building a family and building businesses on the side as well. It's incredible. So nice work, man.
Thank you. It's really been eye-opening to me as well, because I'd say like prior to that first marathon, I wasn't very goal-oriented, or I didn't have many goals. I just figured life was working, partying. I just didn't have the desire to achieve much more than that. I was happy. I was content. But once I did that first marathon and that first Ironman, the structural approach and the goal setting and working towards something, it wasn't just the end goal that was thrilling to me. It was actually just having some structure in my life and figuring stuff out that really gave me a lot of joy and purpose. So that's a learning that I've had. And even more so, it's just opened my eyes and taught me that I can pretty much do anything. It wasn't that hard. I had a coach who set out a plan for me. All I had to do was execute on the plan. And that's what I do in my life now. You have to plan ahead, obviously be very flexible for anything happening along the way, but having a plan and just executing on it, it's not that hard. It's like following a recipe or building IKEA furniture. Although some people might argue that building IKEA furniture isn't that easy. There's structure to the madness.
It is hilarious how the IKEA furniture has no words on it. Yeah, no, that's really interesting that you weren't really goal oriented before, but once you set your mind to this particular goal and were training towards that, it unlocked a whole new approach to life. I'll be honest, I'm still trying to get that going in my own life. Like I have goals, I pursue them rather haphazardly, and it's working out okay. But I'd love to have you share with the audience, say somebody has a goal they want to achieve, and maybe we can use an example or something, but say someone has a goal they want to achieve. How would you recommend somebody go about creating an approach to going after that goal?
I've thought about this, and here's what I would recommend, because it's like the path that I followed. I feel like you have to experience the process of setting yourself a goal, having a structured plan to achieving it, and having that feeling of actually achieving it before going into something bigger in life. At least that's how I think about it. I thought about creating a business where basically I help people achieve their goals. And I was thinking, how would I approach this? I was thinking, and I thought, let's just have everybody who joins the program sign up for a 5K run in their neighborhood. And that's an achievable goal for anybody, whether you believe it or not. It doesn't matter how fit you are, like you can achieve that. And then setting out the plan. Okay, how far away is this goal? When's the race? What do I need to do in those weeks that I have to prepare for this race? And then setting out a plan and key achievements that you need to achieve along the way. And then just simply execute on it. And that just means throwing on your running shoes and getting your ass out of bed in the morning. And I think that if you follow something as simple as that, it will require enough like commitment from you to get out of bed and to check all the boxes of this training plan, and then to actually execute on the day and get that feeling of euphoria. Fuck, I did it. This is awesome. Will really give people a sense that they can achieve much more than they might actually think they can. And from there, it would just be like rinse and repeat. But then instead of doing an endurance or a race or anything like that, you set yourself a goal of, I don't know, maybe you want to get promoted, like within work. Okay, what do you have to do? And I don't know if that would work for everybody, but I think just having a success like that would definitely boost people's confidence and maybe give them like a structural approach to achieving their goals.
Yeah, I like that. I think you're absolutely right. You need to experience it before it really is true for you. I think about something like meditation. I went to a meditation retreat and they were talking about you can know something intellectually, but until you actually experience it, it's totally different. You don't really know it until you experience it. And so I think that having people do a 5K, which, you can do, you're going to have to do some work, but you can definitely make that happen. And there's a clear process to follow. And then you get that win and start to have that confidence in yourself.
Yeah. And I think what would be great about that, because everybody's a procrastinator, having a physical activity as a goal, like you can't procrastinate really. If you have a business goal or something, I feel it might just be easier just not to do things. But if you're doing something physical, like you're going to hurt yourself physically if you don't train. So there's that kind of force acting there as well. But the reason why I like that example of training for a 5K is because of the added health benefit of just being a healthy person. Because that's something I forgot to mention previously. Like I was very unhealthy before I started on this journey. Like I said, I smoked a lot, I drank a lot. And I look at the past 10 years and how my life has progressed. And it could be triathlon that drove all that. But because I was doing triathlon, I was also I was also healthier. And so feeling better about myself, my mental health was a lot better than what it was. And so I feel like living a healthy life and feeling good in your body sets you up for success as well.
Talk a little bit more about how the training that went into the triathlon changed your relationship with health and taking care of your body.
In the early years of triathlon, I didn't think too much about like nutrition or anything, but it was in my later years, I realized that's a missed opportunity. If I focus on nutrition, there's at a certain level, it's all about minutes and seconds, and you do anything to try and shave off some minutes. So nutrition was a big part of that, like making sure that your body is properly fueled. Don't think that I was training like super hard all the time. That's a big part of the training that I did. Is rest is as important as the actual training, but the key trainings where I was supposed to go hard, my body was ready for that because I had prepared it mentally because I knew it was coming up. I had prepared it physically because I was having the right nutrition to be able to just be as strong as I could during trainings. My relationship to health in general shifted in this journey, but it was easy once you start seeing the benefit of it. It's like, oh, you want more, and you realize how good it makes you feel. And it's why would I ever go back? Like I mentioned, I don't do triathlon racing anymore, but I train every day. Like I do some kind of sports activity. I still make sure that I'm eating healthy most of the time. Sometimes I don't, but that's fine too. It's all balanced. So yeah, I feel like it changed my whole perspective of how to live life. And honestly, I enjoy the structure that it's given me. Like that's just having purpose every day. And my purpose is, well, I want to do at least one activity that's going to be active because I love the feeling that I get after I've finished a workout. And once I have that feeling, it also gives me the confidence to take on whatever the day. I think you recommended that book to me once, The Miracle Morning from Hal Elrod. And I followed his guidance for a long time, where basically what he made you do was take a cold shower like every morning. And his belief was if you can put your body through a cold shower every morning, like that's already an obstacle that you've overcome before the day even needs to start. So you're going into the day with a win. And that's how I don't take those cold showers anymore. But I do try to work out every morning. The first thing I do, it's if I put it off to the end of the day, there's so much that can happen in a day that would stop that from, especially with our busy lives, work, kids. So my goal is to do a workout every morning, first thing. And then you're going into the day with a win. So anything that the day throws at you is, I just took a cold shower. I can manage this. I just did 5K run. I can take this challenge easy.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And yeah, I've gotten away from doing the Miracle Morning myself as well, basically since my son was born a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. It gets back to what you were saying before. Once you've done it and you've had the experience of the thing, then it becomes easier. So for instance, when I was doing the Miracle Morning, I would get up early, I would exercise, I would meditate, I would maybe journal sometimes or read, do affirmations. And by the time I'm ready to start my day, I already have done all of the things that make me feel great and are the most important things to get done. So everything else is just gravy from there and easier because the hardest stuff is already out of the way and I don't have it hanging over my head. I've wanted to get back to that. I have not done it yet, but I did just do recently a push-up challenge where the goal was to try to get to 100 push-ups, but I didn't get there. But I did have that training routine where every couple of days I would go through a prescribed set of, sets of push-ups. And the other day I did 60 push-ups in a row, which is the most push-ups I've ever done in my life. And so I felt really good about that. And I think there's a lot to be said for investing in the habits and the healthy habits that make you feel good. And it's hard to really adopt them permanently until you have a taste for it. It gets back to what you were saying before, is you have to experience it to really know it.
Yeah, no. And like the Miracle Morning, like you might not do it anymore. And I don't do it anymore either, but I do forms of it. Like you just learn and you see what works for you. And yeah, you just adjust to what makes more sense to you in that period of life. I did also want to say, like, the 60 push-ups that you did, like, that's huge. I hope you celebrated that. Like it might not have been the end goal, and hopefully you'll still go after those 100 push-ups. But I think also it's important to break up these lofty goals that we set for ourselves with milestones. And that's something that I've certainly done is in triathlon. Like I'll build up my season with a bunch of races or even like specific workouts that, like, conquering those is already boosting energy and getting me even more excited for the next step. So taking the time to identify what are some like realistic milestones and achieving those and celebrating those is a big step to, the overall achievement of the big goal.
Absolutely. I've struggled myself. I've struggled a lot to develop those habits, especially with the exercise. And I used to think of myself as someone who can't stick to things. And I have since adopted mindfulness as the foundation of my healthy lifestyle. It's not perfect in most ways, but it is the first thing that I stuck to. Then I started doing push-ups after that. Then I started expanding that into the Miracle Morning we were talking about, where I do a little yoga, a little push-ups, little sit-ups. And I started feeling stronger and feeling better about myself. As I said, I have fallen off of that, but have recently started to develop a little bit more with the push-up challenge and just trying to move every day. And when I'm in a funk or whatever, just getting out, going for a walk or doing a little bit of exercise makes me feel better. But it's definitely a work in progress for me.
Yeah, it is for me as well. Like I mentioned to you that I chose to stop racing triathlon. And that was a super hard decision for me because the past 9 to 10 years, that's been my identity. At work, people knew me as, wow, Derk, he's kicking ass at work. At the same time, he's this world-class Ironman triathlete. So a lot of my identity was tied up with being a triathlete. You know, I had sponsors. My whole social media was centered around me being a triathlete. So when I made that decision to quit, it was really tough for a while. And in hindsight, I didn't really acknowledge it at the time, but I think I went through a bit of a depression. Yeah, it was just really hard and figuring out, okay, then what's next? Or I started like coming up with other endurance sports that I could do. And like I had myself signed up for an Ultraman, which is even more crazy than an Ironman, which is like a 3-day event. And I started training for that. And I just didn't have the appetite for it anymore. So I was just doing all kinds of things to try and fill that void. And then I just decided, no, okay, I need to stop. I need to reset. I need to figure stuff out. And when I quit triathlon, I fell back into old habits of partying Derk, drinking a lot. And so that wasn't helping. So, and together with my wife, she helped me figure this out. I said, well, I think you're going through a bit of a depression or a crisis. And then I started talking to a therapist, and just talking through it with a third party who has no skin in the game whatsoever was super helpful for me. And I'd never talked to a therapist before. And being from the Nordics of Europe, we don't generally talk about feelings. So it was good to talk about feelings for once as well. And yeah, I managed to dig myself out of that hole, and now in a very good place, actually. I've reset and just set my sights on new goals. One of the most important one being family. It hasn't, me racing Ironman triathlon hasn't been easy on my family because of obviously the 20 to 30 hours a week that I spent training. Refocusing on family time has been great, giving me a lot of joy and happiness, and actually just doubling down on building a business for myself as well. I realized that that's become my real replacement for Ironman training. I feel like in life, I just need to have a lofty goal, and that's now become my lofty goal.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Derk. I think that it's so important to acknowledge that we all have mental health challenges sometimes. And after we've invested so much time and energy and identity into a particular thing, whether it be triathlon or a job, I know a lot of people get a lot of identity from their jobs, right? Whether it be like you and I, having worked for most of our career at the same company at Google, being a Googler is like an identity thing. And when people walk away from it, they can lose that. And I think that given this is a financial independence, retire early podcast, that is something that I recommend people really acknowledge and look at as they're thinking about pursuing financial independence and potentially leaving their full-time work. What are they going to get identity from? And honestly, that's why I started the podcast in the first place. Like, my whole goal with this podcast is to figure out, what do I want to do after I leave full-time work? The math, the nuts and bolts of the math of financial independence are helpful, but they're only one piece. When you get there and you leave work, then what? People always say, what are you going to do? Just sit around? And that's on its face, like, it's not figure it out then, but you really do need to think about it and have a plan. I appreciate you acknowledging that fact that when you leave something you've invested so much in, there almost assuredly will be an adjustment period and potentially some difficult feelings. And so I'm glad you were able to work through that with the help of a therapist and with the support of your wife and your family. And it's really good to hear and acknowledge.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even see that parallel between retiring early. It's definitely a goal that I have. And I know a lot of these listeners have that, but yeah, thinking about that is definitely important. And I'm not saying you have to have a plan, but do realize that once, let's say you do retire early, a big chunk of where you're spending your time today just goes away. And I don't know about you, but if I go on an extended vacation, I tend to get a little bored towards the end and crave, oh, maybe I do want to go back to work or just something like that. So just thinking about that and adding that to your plan would be good practice.
Yeah, definitely. I'm on like a little mini retirement right now. Like, it's a mini retirement. I'm on 3 months off from work, as you know. And I deliberately created space at the beginning of this time off to just do nothing. right? To not focus on big, lofty goals or the podcast or other things. And that was challenging. Certainly, I always feel this urge to like, okay, you got to be doing something, even learning or reading or things like that. And so I tried to set all that to the side. And I was reading a fiction book and I want to get back into reading that. I can offer that for a little bit. But it's interesting the opportunities that have come my way just by creating this space. One of the things that has come up in the last several weeks is the culmination of something I've been envisioning for a while and actually created the podcast to explore is the question of, do I want to teach mindfulness? I had this hypothesis that I might want to teach mindfulness and do like envisioning workshops and things like that after I leave Google or after I retire early. And actually, interestingly, just yesterday, I signed my first workshop. I've been doing it a lot at Google, as you know, but this is my first paid workshop outside of Google. And it's actually at a camp called Camp Woodward that I attended as a teenager. And it's just always held a really special place in my heart and my life. And so I'm actually created this and envisioned it, and it's happening next Monday.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm going to go there and I'm going to facilitate a mindfulness and envisioning workshop for the leadership of the camp and the kind of the corporate level of the camp. And then I'm going to go and skate in the skate parks, basically going to have the whole place to myself. This vision started as, I just want to go there. And how can I go there for free? And now I'm actually getting paid to go there. And it's going to be awesome. And I'm so pumped about it.
Yeah, that's great. Wow, that's exciting. And I'm happy for you. And I agree, like that's something like that I don't do enough of. Is okay, this is not charity that you're doing, but like helping other people is something that myself don't really take part in very much. I never considered myself a teacher. And as you grow older and then you have more experience, then maybe some people would be interested in hearing from me or learning from me. I haven't quite gotten to the point yet where I'll actually offer services, but I feel like I do have experience to share. I was just going to say, and I forgot to mention this earlier, because during this whole journey of triathlon, what people here may or may not know is that triathlon is a ridiculously expensive sport. Just the gear that you need, they're paying for a coach, especially at the level that I wasn't getting, just to be clear, I wasn't being paid by anybody. Yes, at a certain point I had sponsors and I got free stuff, but I still had to pay for travel, accommodation, eating healthy, a nutritionist, all that good stuff. I was paying for myself. There's no money in triathlon whatsoever. Even at pro level, maybe the top 2 or 3 pros are actually making a decent salary. And so as a necessity, I decided I'm not going to flush my Google salary down the toilet here to travel to Hawaii or wherever there was a race. So that's when, I started putting pieces together from learning from you about what did you always say? There's an abundance of opportunity out there.
It's abundant with opportunity. That's true.
Exactly. Yeah. But that stuck with me. And so when I came to realize that, I'm spending a lot of money on triathlon, I'm like, okay, I need something to offset this. And that's when I really got down the entrepreneurial path. And the timing was right. I met a guy through you, Adam. You had organized a happy hour in San Francisco, and it was for that mastermind group that you're a part of. And one of the guys there was selling the foundation. Yeah. One of the guys there was selling phone cases on Amazon. And so I got intrigued by that business model and started selling swimming caps and swim goggles on Amazon. And that's now morphed into new businesses and new ideas to where I am today, where I got this, cool paddleboard brand and a jewelry line that make me a decent amount of money. But the reason that I set that up was just to pay for triathlon. So it was just a means to following that dream.
All right, Derk, let's switch gears into the Mindful Fire Final Four. So the first question, Derk, is over this 9 years of investing your time, sweat, blood, and energy in becoming a professional triathlon, what would you say is the number one life lesson that you learned during that time?
You can achieve anything that you set your mind to. If you really want it, you can achieve it. You just have to be patient and work at it and love it.
Very good. The second question is, what piece of advice would you give to someone early on their path to financial independence?
I guess start saving early, max out your 401k. Yeah, things like that. Things that I learned from you and Mr. Moltz. Yeah, start with the basics and then I guess, follow whatever financial advice other experts can give you. Certainly not me.
Yeah, start saving early and often and max out your 401k. That's definitely good advice. The third question is, what piece of advice would you give to someone getting started with meditation and or mindfulness?
I'd say just be open. I feel like I was getting a lot of my meditation done through long hours of cycling, which now I don't do as much. And now I go to yoga, which I've never been a big fan of. It just never really worked for me. And it was also just a bit of a bias that I had towards it. I'm like, I don't need to do yoga. I already do so much training. I don't need this. But I've recently been going with my wife. I always went against my will, but now I go and I surrender to it and I follow my breath, and it's amazing. I don't know why I've been resisting so long, because I'm really enjoying it, and just the peace that it gives me. I just decided to surrender one day. I even did something weird the other day. I did ecstatic dance, basically dancing sober, which is something that I'd never really done in life before, and resisted with everything in my body. But I just gave in. So maybe that's my advice. Just give into it. Let it just happen to you.
Be open to it. I think that's really good advice, and let things come to you. All right, Derk, the last question is, how can people connect with you online and follow what you're up to?
I'm open to any form of contact. Instagram is Derk de Korver. My email is dirkdekorver@gmail. My LinkedIn is Derk de Korver. Yeah, any means that people want to reach out to me through is fine. And I'm open to it. It's funny, I get energized when people do reach out and ask for help. I'm super happy to share.
All right. Maybe you are a teacher after all.
Maybe.
Yeah. All right. I'll link all that up in the show notes. Thank you so much, Derk, for being here today and sharing your wisdom with the community.
Yeah, my pleasure. Really, thanks for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Me too, man. Me too. All right. We'll catch up with you soon. Thanks for joining me on today's episode of the Mindful Fire podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, I invite you to hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this. This just lets the platforms know you're getting value from the episodes and you want to be here when I release additional content. If you're ready to start your Mindful Fire journey, go to mindfulfire.org/start and download my free envisioning guide. In just 10 minutes, this guide will help you craft a clear and inspiring vision for your life. Again, you can download it for free at mindfulfire.org/start. Thanks again, and I'll catch you next time on the Mindful Fire podcast.